Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I'm your host Tony Fiorino, and as you know, each week here on Hey Coach Tony, we tackle the hottest topics in youth sports, and as always, we want to hear from you, so we open up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. Well, this week we're going to talk about, well, maybe not the hottest topic in youth sports, but certainly one of the older and most important topics in youth sports. Back in 1972, one of the most significant breakthroughs in amateur sports came to us in the form of what's known as Title IX. Now, for those of you without daughters or without a clue, Title IX was created basically to ensure gender equality in amateur and scholastic sports. In a nutshell, and I am by no means an expert in Title IX, but in a nutshell, Title IX states that if an opportunity is afforded to a boy in scholastic sports, that very same opportunity must be afforded to a girl. Like I said, as a father of two talented young female athletes, I believe Title IX is certainly one of the best laws that's ever been passed in school sports. And it sounds pretty much like a foolproof plan, at least at the surface level, you might think. But you know what? If you read the fine print, it doesn't exactly read specifically the way I outlined it. Because you see, it also works the other way around. Meaning, if as a school you afford an opportunity to a girl, in turn you must also create that very same opportunity for a boy. Again, this all starts to sound fair. But like everything else in youth sports, you wait around long enough and someone's going to come along and mess everything up. So get this. At Norwood High School in Norwood, Massachusetts, the long-standing girls' 50-meter freestyle swimming record was broken last month. Problem is this. The girls' record was broken by a boy. Now, you heard me right. A boy, kid by the name of Will Higgins, competed against and beat a group of girls to claim the girls' state swimming record. Now, this has clearly opened up a can of worms, and this morning we're going to talk about the various developments and loopholes involved in Title IX. So joining me to bat this around this morning are two very well-respected coaches. We're going to be taking your calls at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622 if you want to share your stories about Title IX and some gender equality or lack thereof. But I am joined in studio this morning by Cyndie Adamski of Brookfield High School. While Cyndie does not coach any longer, she recently gave that up, she is a Hall of Fame coach in both softball and field hockey. She's also a former athletics director. She is currently a phys ed and health teacher. She started her career back in the early 70s. If I'm not mistaken, she started her career, in fact, before Title IX was ever even put in place. So, Cyndie, first of all, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
The other coach in studio with me this morning is a lady by the name of Kate Kadlubowski, and I've been practicing that all night. You think Fiorino is hard enough to say. Kate Kadlubowski, who is the Varsity Girls Basketball Coach for Somers High School. Kate is in studio to represent this next generation of coaches who actually played high school and college sports under the blanket of Title IX. Kate, first of all, congratulations on your win yesterday. I understand you beat Ursuline of New Rochelle in a pretty tight game.
We did. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony.
Good morning.
Well, ladies, thanks for joining me on the show this morning. Let me start by asking each of you this. Hearing, at least at the highest level, this story about Will Higgins, this boy who broke the girls' 50-meter freestyle swimming record. It's a long-standing record. Cyndie, I'll start with you. What kind of thoughts go through your head when you hear something like this?
Well, first of all, always bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, that's never going to be equated into a girl being bigger, faster, stronger than her certainly bigger, faster, stronger male.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason that sports evolved into a male-centric first.
Correct.
I mean, are there girls that are bigger, stronger and faster than some boys?
Boys, yes.
Sure, but no one... anybody wants to make that blanket statement today, call the show. Go ahead. But exactly, that's kind of the nature of the beast. But still, a boy's holding a girl's school record.
Yes. Well, first of all, I don't think that really happens in Connecticut, but I could be wrong. I think CIAC has taken some measures to see that the playing field's a little bit more level than that. My other thought, of course, is always there should be some kind of an addendum to that whoever the girl was that held that record should still hold the record, with an addendum saying that the young man swam in the meet in 2011, and this was his time while he was swimming in the meet. So that's one way to go.
Well, and there are a lot of ways to go, and not the least of which, well, before we get into it too much, Kate, you may not have heard the story last week because I know you're in full swing of basketball season, but let's say, when it comes right down to it, a boy swam in a girls' event, broke the state record. What immediate thoughts come to your mind?
My immediate thought is he's a boy and it's a girls' swim meet, and even though he's participating, that I think the girl should still hold the record.
Okay, so now, on behalf of... Boy, I got to tell you, my wife is... Yeah, she's listening now. She just picked up my daughter from lacrosse. Throughout the show, I'm going to make a total idiot of myself without meaning to do so. It was a boy swimming in a girls' event. Throughout this country, there are girls who compete in boys' events. This may fall under the guise of, and by the way, 855-HEY-COACH is the studio line if you want to call. Be careful what you ask for. The people who really advocated for Title IX originally, there was such a massive swing in the opposite direction that they were screaming for equality, where I'm not sure equality does exist and ever should or will exist in sports. So what do you then tell the girl who wants to swim on the boys' team because there's no there's no girls' team?
She can swim in Connecticut.
By the way, she can swim anywhere in the country. That's the law.
Right.
But if we're saying the boy doesn't get his record or shouldn't have his record because he's swimming in a girls' event, and I'm not saying the laws don't need to be amended and changed because I personally think they do, but if you tell this kid you're a boy, you swam in a girls' event, what do you tell the girl who wants to swim in the boys' event and does? And let's say a girl breaks, let's put this one way out there, and it's not ridiculous, but let's assume a girl next week in New Jersey breaks the 50-meter boys' school record. Should that one stand?
Highly unlikely to me, but...
I'm not saying it won't happen. Boy, you ladies are just ducking for cover. I'm being mild-mannered this morning. And by the way, I think it is a ridiculous notion. And do I think the boy should hold the record? No, I don't. And I do think it's because, and Kate is really turning red here, I'm a really easygoing guy, trust me. But the point is, the way the law stands now, you have got... In other words, this boy did nothing wrong.
Correct.
And there's something fundamentally wrong with that. But let's get onto the lighter side of this for a second. And okay, you got something to add?
I was going to say, it's not his fault for breaking the record. It's just, I just feel like it's apples and oranges a little bit.
It is, and that's why I think at some level, something like Title IX, while written with all the best of intentions and absolutely necessary in some form in its current state, is a disaster. And there have been other stories, and there will continue to be other stories like this that are going to just cast a really negative light on Title IX as a concept. But let's talk about some of the light and fluffy, happy stuff. Tell me about some of your own personal experiences. Like I said, Cyndie, you started your coaching career before Title IX even hit. So you got to see this as an inception and an evolution. Kate, you got to play under, I don't want to say the protection, but for lack of a better term, under the blanket of Title IX. Cyndie, I'll start with you. Give me about some of your personal experiences with Title IX and some of the good and bad that's come along with that.
Well, some of the good that came along with it, quite frankly, when I reached Brookfield, we played in the Berkshire League, which already had women's sports, but many of my friends coached at schools that did not have any girls' sports at all, zero. Mm-hmm. So I saw an evolution with them being able to coach, and therefore more teams in the state of Connecticut evolved. And the other thing was, when I got to Brookfield, we had no uniforms really. I mean, there was limited amount of equipment that you had. I was paid to coach the varsity team, but expected to coach also the JV team for no pay. In two sports, field hockey and in softball, that happened, and it happened in basketball until the evolution of equal pay and Title IX. And so those are some of the good things that happened. People got paid actually to do two teams. Oh, and my male counterparts were already being paid to coach varsity and had a paid assistant coach.
Wow, did they make you sit in the back of the bus?
I'm lucky I didn't have to drive the bus, to be honest with you.
I hate to draw a parallel to anything remotely resembling a civil rights movement, but wow, I mean, back in the early 70s, you guys were second-rate citizens.
Yes, we were, quite frankly.
Wow.
And more so at other people's schools. I mean, at least I had a sport to coach when I came to Brookfield. Many schools did not.
Wow. Kate, what about you? I mean, like you said, coming up as a hardcore athlete, a hoops player throughout high school and college, what was the buzz? Because you are younger than me, not too much, but you're younger than I am. So, what was the buzz? I mean, Title IX was basically in kind of full swing when you were playing, correct?
Oh yeah. Well, I was playing in high school in the late '90s. I graduated high school in 2000. So at that point, it was obviously around for 20 years, and I played 3 varsity sports in high school, and I mean, I never felt like we didn't get anything that the boys got, definitely.
Okay.
So, and now as a coach, I never feel like we don't get things that the boys team. The girls try to say it, and I'm like, guys, come on, But it's true. Like we, at least in basketball, we were really, I feel, very equal.
Well, and I think it also has something to do with the school systems themselves. I mean, Somers is not immune to the ridiculous budget cuts and financial constraints as any other school. But having said that, we're still in a pretty decent position overall. Our cuts have primarily been at the modified level, so we can maintain the integrity of the varsity sports.
It did happen this year that we lost modified, and because of numbers, we don't have a freshman team either. So right now we're running JV and varsity, which isn't the best for the younger kids.
Well, again, my daughter. She's a 7th grader. She was very excited about playing modified basketball this year, and I was incredibly excited about not having to coach travel basketball this year. Now, both of those things went out the window, but in all candor, and this is for another show, the idea that it's not just the girls' sports that were being cut. Modified sports are being cut across the board. But the notion that these kids have nowhere to play, forget about their gender, is a whole other situation. Let me ask you folks point blank. Title IX, and I'm not asking you to be an expert on it, but in general terms, is Title IX in its current state fair? Or is it fair enough?
Well, I think it's certainly at least fair enough. And actually, it just from 2010 to now, fended off a small rally to change Title IX. I don't know if anybody knows that, but there's something called the survey loophole in Title IX, where instead of just straight going by the number of participants and being fair that way, that under the George Bush administration, they wanted to do the survey loop, which is I give a survey to all the students at the college level to see what they want. And if there's not enough people that want basketball or tennis or whatever it is, then we'll cut that, because there are several loopholes in Title IX that really need to be tightened. So they did fend it off at the national level. So it's not without challenge from people, even in 2010. But it did increase girls' sports. I read somewhere that it was 1 in 27 girls participated in 1972, and it's now 1 in 2.5 girls participate.
And is that at the high school level, or is that lump college as well?
That was at the high school level.
Wow. See, that's very, I got to tell you, you're talking about, I'm not going to do the math on this, but it's got to be somewhere around 40%, I guess. That's pretty impressive, because if nothing else, get the kids off their butts and away from the video games and have them start, getting themselves physically active. Forget about all the incredible life lessons you learn from being an athlete. I mean, we can talk another hour just about that alone. Kate, what do you think? Fair enough in its current state?
I do, and I was also adding to that. It's just girls' sports have come along so much since I have even been in high school, and I can only imagine what you've seen. I can't even imagine just how many more play and how many more opportunities there are, not only at high school but every level. It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, and like I said, I was talking with Cyndie before we got on the air this morning. As a dad to girls, it's one thing, but growing up without sisters gives me such a tunnel vision view on girl sports. Having daughters and watching them, and I don't mind saying it, they're as pretty as you ever want to see a young girl be, but they're both vicious animals. And I love that they can do that, and that's an opportunity that, like I said, even when I was growing up, there was, and I will not go through the negative stereotypes when I was in high school that surrounded female athletes, some of which certainly still exist. I personally think there's not a more attractive thing on the planet than girls who are athletically active. It's an amazing thing. Title IX, again, we're talking about Title IX this morning. We're going to have to go to a quick break. But the notion here is started for all the right reasons. Plenty of good stuff surrounding it. But there are some loopholes that people are trying to exploit. There are new loopholes that people are trying to institute. And the fact of the matter is, this all boils down to the fact that right now the 50-meter freestyle record holder in the state of Massachusetts is a boy. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi.
Coach Tony. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hey Coach Tony. You're with Tony Fiorino. I am joined in studio with Coach Cyndie and Coach Kate. We are talking about Title IX. And, again, the past month or two has certainly stirred up some controversy around Title IX. And I know that you folks have some things to say. We've opened up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. In fact, I believe we've got Kurt calling in from Chicago. Kurt is on line 2, so we're going to go to you. Kurt, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. How we doing?
Very good. How you doing, Coach Tony?
I am great. It's good to hear from you, my friend. I know that Title IX is something you've written about, including very recently, so definitely kind of anxious to get some of your thoughts. What do you think in general terms about what we're talking about?
Well, let me start by saying I'm a full supporter of Title IX.
Every man has to say that. Every man has to say that first. Why?
Well, the reasons I do say that, I grew up in the same era as one of the coaches there. I graduated high school in '75, so I saw the development of Title IX and the positive things that came out of it. I have 2 daughters that competed both high school and collegiately Division I, one in volleyball and one in soccer. So the idea behind Title IX was to bring opportunity to girls where they had none before, and it should have always been that way. The problem isn't, from my perspective, isn't in Title IX per se, but it's in the way they apply or they interpret the rule. Like, equality tends to be very black and white. You have 5 marbles, I have 5 marbles. That's equal. I think the law was put into effect to be more along the lines of being equitable, meaning what's fair and what's just. So then my interpretation of that individual breaking the girl's record, I would answer it from this perspective. Was it fair? Was it just? And I would say no. I don't see that as it's equal. He has his opportunity, but it's not equitable. And I think that's where they really should go from the perspective of Title IX, a little bit more common sense with the idea of things being equitable, and I think it would work out to everyone's benefit.
Well, I think you're throwing 2 terms together that don't necessarily belong together. It's like military intelligence. You're saying common sense and the law. And if the law was based on common sense, 90% of the lawyers walking this planet would be out of work. Because most, especially, and I don't mean to pick, actually I do mean to pick on defense attorneys. So if any of you are listening, call in, sue me, whatever. The point is, defense attorneys don't make their living, the ones who make a lot of money, don't make their money because of justice. They make their money because of loopholes. And that's what's happening with Title IX. So now, personally, Kurt, let me just ask you this, and I think I know your answer, but should boys be allowed to compete with girls?
Well, I don't believe so. I think one of the women on your show said something about apples and oranges, and I think they're never going to be equal. Again, Title IX has to do with opportunity. Before Title IX, girls were barred from high school sports. That's not right. That's the purpose behind Title IX. So, no, I think they should be given both the opportunity in their own venues. That's equitable.
So how do you? So that's a good point, because it was kind of a trick question, because I said, should boys be allowed to compete with girls? And most people will say no. Change 2 words in that sentence, and everybody says yes. Should girls be allowed to compete with boys? Now, here's where I want to throw something out there. There is no equality in. There's no gender equality in sports. There will never be gender equality in sports. And now I'm going to say what most of you are dancing around. There should not be gender equality in sports. Period. Men and women are not equal physically. Physically.
Right.
Now, before I should have put a partition here. I got Coach Kate ready to jump over the chair at me. She's still a little upset about squeaking out a win against Ursuline yesterday. But the point is, there shouldn't be, and the reason for that is, and this is chauvinistic, but in a reverse way. If it was my son, and he said, "Dad, I'm going to swim on the girls' team," I would say, "No, you're not." Period. You're just not. What is that kid? That kid now has a medal around his neck saying girls 50-meter freestyle record holder. Is that kid walking around the halls at Norwood High School going, "Oh, get some"? I'm like, come on, what are we doing? There's no place for that in sports, and there should not be any place for that in sports. Is it unfair to men that women get to compete with men and not the other way around? Yes, but I don't care. I don't care. Should a smaller kid stand up to a bully every time? Absolutely. Should bigger kids walk around beating up on smaller kids? No. Is it fair? No. Who cares? This is just one of those things you can't draw a rational conclusion other than the purely logical one, which is, if a girl is good enough to compete with the boys, let her do it. If the boy wants to play field hockey and there's no interest in your school, too bad. Find enough guys who want to wear the plaid skirts and play field hockey, or join the bowling team or the chess club or something else. Now I'm starting to lose my mind. Now the women are actually getting a little afraid. But, Kurt, do you follow me? I mean, what you're saying is right, and we're dancing around it, but come on, let's call it what it is.
Well, I still lean toward the idea of keeping them in their own venues and using the idea of Title IX of giving everybody equal opportunity. I mean, one of the articles I wrote had to do with the new push for proportionality, which is a whole different issue where they take what they're using in college and apply it to high school, which means they look at roster spots. So let's say, for example, your population in a high school is 60% female and 50% male, then according to roster spots, 60% of your spots need to be for females and 40% for males.
Correct.
Which would change the whole dimension of opportunity. And that's where I go back to the idea of we really need to look at this from a position of what's equitable for both, fair and just, not what's blanket equal. As you said, it's not going to be equal. That's not possible.
But doesn't that just now boil down, though, to monetary for especially high schools and certainly colleges, but especially high schools, where if I don't have enough money to fund both a men's and a women's swim team, because that's the place where you find those kind of sports are where people cross over and swim on the other person's team, then what do you do about those people? You just cancel all swimming?
Well,
that's a good question.
Here's an idea, because let's look back now at Norwood High School, and this is one of the only boys that wanted to swim in the fall, or because apparently there's 2 swim seasons.
Correct.
Winter is the big one.
Same
right?
as Connecticut, yeah.
Winter is the big swim season.
That's boys.
And fall is kind of okay. A couple of things that I would say. First of all, in the fall season, one of my guests on the show is a coach from Trumbull, Connecticut, Mike Ferrara, who coaches a club swim team. With all the club swim teams, with all the club sports that are available. Going back to me telling my son, you're not going to swim on the girls' team. What I would follow up with is, we're going to find you a club team to swim on. I mean, why put yourself through that ridicule? Now, the other thing, and there's another way they can get creative and solve this, at least at the high school level, which is there are combined teams.
Yep.
Brookfield and Danbury could combine to have a boys' swim team. Somers and North Salem, I know, do it in several sports, including hockey, or maybe hockey is the only one now. But
I don't know. I know definitely hockey.
So there are schools that combine. If there aren't enough boys, you compete together. Things like track and swimming, you could say, you know what? This kid from Norwood, swim with Waltham High School during the season to practice. But when it's time for a meet, because it's an individual sport, put on your Norwood High School Speedo and swim. What's the matter, kid? You laughing about Speedo? You're looking at me thinking Speedo and laughing. But the point is, you can work out with another team, and then an individual sport like a golf or a bowling or a tennis, you could then still wear your school colors.
That only works when the seasons are the same. That's the problem with swimming, because the girls' season is the fall and the boys' season is the winter. So you can't find any other team to work out with in the fall except to go to a club team.
Well, I know that's the case in Connecticut. I'm not sure that's.
I'm not sure it's the case everywhere.
But my point is that yes, if you have nowhere else to swim, then I would assume in the fall, like I said, if swimming is big where you are and you have a fall season where you don't do it in school, there's a club team somewhere. Yeah. There just is. So again, I don't know if this kid. Boy, this is where I start dancing on eggshells. By the way, Kurt, I really, I don't know if you want to add anything else before we let you go.
Well, I did have a question.
Sure.
She had mentioned something about money, and that is a huge issue. I do not believe, and I'd let either one of the women, answer this or talk to this point. I do not believe that Title IX was ever invoked or brought about with the idea that we were going to diminish opportunity for men or boys and increase opportunity for girls. I think the idea behind it was originally to bring the opportunity for women up to where men were. If we go with the idea of proportionality, and my point was before, then what they're doing, if they don't have the money, is they're cutting or will cut opportunity for boys to bring girls up. And I'm not sure that's the best approach. Now, do I have a solution? Not at this point, but I'd like to throw that out there and have the two coaches talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, you're right. It certainly isn't fair about proportionality, and the worst ones come with the wrestling programs, some of which were not funded by the school. They were funded privately by either donations or fundraising kind of things, and they were still made to cut their wrestling programs. I mean, that didn't even have to do with the school supporting it.
All right, well, listen, we're having a little, you can hear we're starting to break into some commercials here for a second. We're going to go to a quick break. Kurt, thanks very much for the call, as always.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, ladies. Good job.
Listen, when we get back, we're going to talk more about Title IX. You're with Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back. Coach Tony. Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Hey Coach Tony on ESPN, and we are talking about Title IX this morning. But you know what? Before we get back to Title IX, I got to tell you, I got in the car this morning and I froze my butt off. And guess what that means? If you got a chance to go to Catamount this past fall for their aerial adventure park, the cold weather outside should let you know that ski season is here. So if you are anywhere in this listening area, it means that you are really no more than maybe an hour or so tops from some of the best skiing imaginable close to home. Each year, my family and I spend a ton of time at Catamount, flying down the large number of courses, and it's a challenge for every level of skier in the family. For more information, go to catamountski.com. Like I said, just a short drive away, Catamount makes for the perfect skiing day trip. So go to catamountski.com for more information, and if you bump into my buddy Rich Edwards when you're there, you make sure you tell him that Coach Tony sent you. Now, as I said before the break, we started chatting a little bit about Title IX and some of the inherent flaws that exist in Title IX. Because let's face it, when Title IX was first created, there was no consideration whatsoever for one of the biggest problems facing Title IX equality, which is funding. We were chatting during the break. Providence, at the college level, had to scrap its baseball program some years ago because they could not fund a girls' softball program, which was the equivalent. It's obviously not a girls' baseball team. And there were other things that were being brought into this equation that nobody really thought about when they started Title IX. Cyndie, you had mentioned that Providence had just brought in a couple of girls' sports, and they basically had to try to force fit softball. Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know if this was at Providence, but at most other schools that were trying to bring their proportion up to meet the girls' enrollment, they had two choices, basically, because most of them had all the other basic sports. They had to either add crew or they had to add field hockey, which a lot of, especially in the South, a lot of universities did not have that. So those were their two choices, and the most ridiculous one was Arizona, where they were trying to keep a men's team, but the only thing they could add was crew. So they told them that maybe they could fund bringing a man-made waterway into the Gulch area, which would have cost them, I can't even imagine how much. It was defeated in a referendum, however.
Well, they probably could have afforded it, but at some point they probably said, are we going to really spend money digging a trench?
It was defeated in the referendum, yes.
Every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could have, you can have a bunch of people row in a circle in the pool, I guess. I don't know. But we are talking about the level of fairness and parity in Title IX as it exists today. If you have something to add to what we're talking about here, by all means, give us a call at 855-HEY-COACH. It's 855-439-2622. Now, I did get a couple of emails, and I'm going to go through these as time permits. But I got one here from Carl in New Milford who writes in and says, "Hey, Coach Tony, there are certain sports like swimming, golf, and bowling where there is no defense, no intimidation factor, so there really isn't an issue with who you're competing against. You're playing against, in theory, yourself, your own score, your own time, or perhaps the course or the pool itself. Having a male in the field has no impact whatsoever in how a female will perform or compete." While I get the concept here and by the way, thanks for the email, Carl. While I get the overall concept that Carl is trying to illustrate here, he's a little bit off, and the reason is, I'll give you an example. We'll keep going back to this Norwood High School thing. Carl, if you're listening, try to call, because how would you feel if you were the dad of the girl who previously held the swimming record for the state of Massachusetts? Granted, it didn't diminish that girl's time. Her time was still the same, but guess what? She doesn't get to hold the state swimming record anymore. And it's because a boy who, in general terms, bigger, stronger, faster, nobody ever brings intelligence into that equation, nor should they. So think about that. Think about the girls that are standing on the number 2 and 3 spots on that podium when there's, a man or boy standing in the number 1 spot. So to say it has no impact whatsoever, I think, is kind of foolish. Now, I will tell you this. One thing that does hold true for those sports, like golf, swimming, bowling, and by the way, you left out wrestling, figure skating, and even auto racing, and just in case Danica Patrick's listening, what you left out is this, and it's important. Because these are, and we alluded to this earlier, because these are individual sports, my thought is, instead of chasing after the cheap records and the hollow victories by competing against a girl, there are other solutions. And we do hear about them all the time. We talked about practicing with another school or having combined teams for the boys. Because when it's time to compete, you can still, and it happens in track a lot, and when it's time to compete, you just go out there as the sole representative of your school. I'm not going to use the Speedo comment again, driving Coach Cato bonkers here. Question for you ladies. What do you say to a school that takes a stand? They listen to the show today, and they think, wow, Coach Tony, you're on to something. They take a stand, and they refuse the opportunity to a boy who wants to swim against girls.
I mean, I just don't think that, I guess according to Title IX, you can't refuse it, but if I was the kid, I don't even know why you'd want to be doing it. That's just my opinion.
Don't disagree with that. Like I said, I would not allow my son to do it.
I think it'd be kind of embarrassing.
You and me think exactly. You and I think exactly this. I would think that kid walking around Norwood High School must be must be subject to such ridicule. And in a day and age when I've done shows about this, we talked about it just last week with Coach DiMatteo. Things like hazing and bullying and teasing are at epidemic proportions in this country. Kids are killing themselves, literally, over ridicule. Now, you're going to go proudly wear the girls' 50-meter freestyle record medal around your neck, walking around the high school? That kid right now has gotten more wedgies and swirlies, is my guess, over the past couple of weeks than I got through my entire childhood. And we're not going to talk about my childhood, but but at the same time, Title IX exists. So, Cyndie, what do you say to the school that refuses?
What if the reason that he swam in the fall, and I'm not saying that it is, but what if the reason he swam in the fall was because he's the number 1 wrestler in the winter? So he chooses to wrestle in the winter, and he wants to do something in the fall. I'm not sure that he's getting ridiculed by the wrestling team if he's the number 1 wrestler or the number 1 basketball player or the number 1 bowler or whatever it is.
So for those of you playing the Hey Coach Tony drinking game, for every time I sound chauvinistic, we'll do this. If a kid is the number 1 wrestler, if a male is the number 1 wrestler in the winter, he is not doing anything on any girls' team.
Possibly, but
not possibly.
But what if he's?
Here's where I'll overstate it. No way that's happening.
But I don't agree that he's getting ridiculed. Maybe he's getting ridiculed for holding the record. Oh, buddy, you hold the record.
That's my point.
But I'm gonna highly doubt it because there's something he's doing in the winter.
I'll bet he's swimming in the winter.
No, he can't. That's not. No, you have to choose one or the other.
I'm not sure that's the case in Massachusetts.
Well, that is the case.
I know it's in Connecticut.
Would be in Connecticut.
Yeah, I know that. But like I said, even if that was the case, like I said, there are club teams. If he's swimming to stay in shape, go to the YMCA.
Oh, club is the perfect spot to stay in shape.
Yeah, I mean, just do whatever the hell you got to do to stay in wrestling shape. But I mean, is he snapping towels with the girls and putting them in headlocks in the locker room after the big meet? I mean. All right, I don't mind having a little fun with it this morning. Like I said, there's no gender equality in sports. There's never going to be, and I don't think there should be. You know what? I think, I want to clarify. I'm not saying all this stuff to sound like a jerk, and I know that I do sound like a jerk. I'm saying it to make a point. We need to stop looking for equality and start looking for equal opportunities between the gender. That's the fact of the matter. And if you think that's not fair, guess what? The world is not fair. If you're a guy, you want to play field hockey, sorry. There are not enough boys who want to play field hockey. That is it. There's just not enough interest in what you're interested in. That's how the world works. It just happens that way sometimes. I think youth sports, and my show in particular, should be on every single radio station in the country. Right? Guess what? The interest isn't there yet. We're getting there, but we still got work to do. So should I get an attorney? Write my congressman, pass some legislation that I should get as much time as Colin Cowherd? Or the same paycheck, even better? No. All I can do is continue to do my best and hope that this little movement that I'm working on continues to gain momentum and support. And if it does, we're going to continue to sign up more affiliates. By the way, for our listeners in Connecticut, starting in January or February, the show is going to be simulcast on television, which I'm very excited about. So I'm getting there. Colin Cowherd, look out. Hey, you know what? We're going to have to go to a quick break, and we're going to talk some more about Title IX when we get back, and there's another email or two and a phone call that we'll nail. But before we do, one of the sponsors of the show is the Sono Fieldhouse, and I'm a big fan of what they do. They offer year-round opportunities for kids, boys and girls, to do what they want to do. But this winter, starting in January, they are holding both girls and boys baseball and softball clinics. For more information, you should go to sonofieldhouse.com. For more information about the actual academies, you got to call Bill Lengel at 203-856-1127. You can call Phil Balanek at 203-515-5133 or Paul Jacoby at 203-219-0051. You can also inquire by email. Just send an email to sonobaseballacademy@yahoo.com. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Tony Fiorino on Hey Coach Tony. We're having some fun this morning talking about some of the subtleties of Title IX. I promise I'd get back to some of your emails. Something kind of cool came in. Julie from Carmel wrote in, and I think, Kate, you alluded to this earlier. She says, Hey Coach Tony, even though a boy swims in a girl's event, couldn't they just keep the records separate so a girl who works really hard doesn't get penalized? I think that's a no-brainer, and I don't know how. And my guess is that's probably what's going to happen. They will put an asterisk next to the boy's name.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think they're just going to say he doesn't hold the girl's record because he's not a girl. You may compete. Call me a simpleton.
Agreed.
There are certain noticeable differences, especially in a pool, between boys and girls. You want to swim with the girls? You may. You may not hold the girl's record. So Julie and Carmel, that's great, and it kind of hits the nail right on the head. Let me ask you this: in general terms, what would you change? Not knowing the bits and bytes of the legality and the actual verbiage that's used in Title IX, what would you change to make Title IX more equitable? How would you change Title IX to make it better?
Well, I don't personally really like the fact that men, this is more collegiate, that men at the collegiate level have lost opportunity because of proportionality. So I don't like that piece of the legislation at all, but it is in there, and I guess that's what they hang their hat on. But I'm not sure what you put in its place. I certainly don't want the survey.
Well, like you said, in Arizona, if you are stuck and the only thing left is crew and it's just physically impossible, I don't think Title IX was created to ever take anything away from any
Correct.
kid. And
Yep.
that's, like I said, you get a lawyer with an agenda and an axe to grind, and they start to twist these things, and they find these loopholes, and they exploit them. So, did it make that idiot lawyer feel any better, or that idiot parent feel any better? Do I feel bad that your daughter can't play a sport? Of course I do. But I don't think she was going out for crew. And if that's the only way to get that proportionality or equality, and all it does is hurt another kid, I'm not buying it. I think it's a really stupid way to do it. And there's clearly room for augmentation of all this legislation on Title IX. Kate, what do you think? What changes would you make to it?
I don't know if I have anything specifically. I think that because of the equality factor, and I think just women versus men in society and everything, we're still fighting. So, I mean, this is just giving the girls more and more opportunities, especially regarding sports. They need it. I think girls need it. So, I mean, I don't have anything specifically, but they just really, it's helping and making girl sports boom.
And I'm a huge advocate of female athletics. I'm a huge advocate for all kids' athletics. I think, whatever we can do to get more kids active and participating is great. I do also think, having firsthand experience watching two beautiful young girls, pick up a ball or a tennis racket or a lacrosse stick and watch it literally change their lives, you can't do enough to advocate for women in sports. And I look forward to the day when we have to fix Title IX to fix it for boys. That would be a wonderful thing. Do I think that's ever going to happen? No. It's not. That's fine. Until they start inventing new sports, like you said, Cyndie,
Right.
there are just certain disparities that exist just in the games they can play and do play. Well, I enjoyed this quite a bit, and one of the things I want to make sure, because I got an email last night from my buddy Joe Buffard, who is the director of the Youth Football Coaches Association of America. So guess what, Connecticut? If you're feeling a little too good about yourself, buckle your seatbelts because it's about to get bumpy. I came across a story last night that I think I threw up in my mouth a little bit. And the people in New Canaan, Connecticut right now are all turning off their radios because they know what I'm talking about. Get this. After a 5-year winning streak in New Canaan youth football, parents have made claim that one youth football team's loss in this year's semifinals resulted in the coaches burning the players' trophies, yelling obscenities in front of the team during the year-end party. According to you heard this right. According to multiple sources, coaches of the New Canaan Youth Football 8th grade black team took part in the incident after the team came in 3rd place in their division. Now, according to a parent and one of the players who asked to remain anonymous, which I'll respect, the kids had just been given their 3rd place trophies at the year-end party. Doesn't matter where it was, so I'm not going to say this, but it was on November 19th. Coach Rod Fox, and I'll use that name because if this is true, Rod Fox, kill yourself. Kill yourself. There, I said it. Kill yourself. And tape it and send it to me. Anyway, this Coach Rod Fox told the children to walk over to Irwin Park and to do what they call Indian runs, which I assume is some punishment for not being the best. Way to go, Coach Rod Fox. Once they were there, however, the kids were asked to throw their trophies into a pile, at which point Fox and his assistant coaches, who can also, line up and pick up the same gun that Fox is using, Jay Perrone and David Jans, allegedly poured gasoline over the trophies, yelling an obscenity. Their account of the burning was supported by a second parent who gave her name. Thank you very much, Melissa Thorkelson. According to police, they investigated the incident after receiving an anonymous tip. The coaches told police that none of the kids had been required to burn their trophies, and that some of the boys decided not to participate in the burning. There's a photo that's available of the pile of burnt trophies in Irwin Park. You can actually go up to the Facebook page at Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio and see it. It was taken the day after the incident. It shows the charred remains of more than a dozen football trophies. There are 24 boys on the team, so the pile has since been cleaned up. Melissa Thorkelson said she sent a letter to the 3 coaches expressing her concern about the incident, and she was quoted as saying, "I had been upset with the situation, and I heard from the coaches and received an explanation for why they did what they did. I had direct contact with them. I'm not trying to be deceptive. I will confirm that it happened, but I addressed my concerns directly with the coaches, and I heard back from 2 of them." So what do you think about go ahead. What do you think about hearing this? First of all, does it matter whether or not they made the kids do it or how many of them did it?
No.
So what do you think, Coach, about burning the trophies for 3rd place?
I think it's a horrible lesson for kids to learn early on that, I mean, certainly everybody wants to have 1st place, but I think there was an incident in the area here somewhere where some high school coach, they came in 2nd or something, he got off the bus and he put the trophy under the tire and told the bus driver to run it over. So all of these kind of things just make me crazy. I mean, teach kids to learn to lose gracefully, and it just isn't your time.
But this is a team that has not lost a game in 5 years. The first one you lose, and you send that message, screaming obscene. Now, granted, 8th grade boys are no strangers to obscenities. My son's a freshman, so I'm not going to go over the top on that. Football coaches, in general, you use them lousy language. I'm not even going to touch that because I don't think it's a big deal. But for you to even by the way, first couple of kids start throwing those trophies in. You think maybe there were 1 or 2 kids that wanted that trophy and said, "Oh boy, everyone's throwing theirs in the fire. I better throw mine in there"?
Definitely.
Do you think that maybe that kid will not grow much more after 8th grade and maybe not even play in high school? And the last symbol of their success of youth football was a 3rd place trophy, and it's now, in charred remains because some dummy decided we're going to burn your trophies because 3rd place stinks? Rod Fox, I'm telling you, if you know Rod Fox, go to his house, give him a noose, a knife, a gun, tell him to play one-man Clue, and just kill himself in the study with the candlestick. I don't care how you do it. There is no place in youth sports for the Rod Foxes, the Jay Perones, and David Jans of the world. And I said it. And I will find you guys, and I will invite you to come into the show because I'm dying to hear you explain yourself. I can't wait to hear the crap that's going to spew out of your mouth explaining why you made 3rd grade boys, or even insinuated or suggested that 8th grade boys burn their 3rd place trophies. I still have every trophy I ever won in my parents' house. It sounds kind of stupid the way I just said that. The point is, each one of them has a memory attached to it. And if those kids' only memory is my coach went absolute bonkers and suggested we burn our trophies, you just scarred those kids for life. They're never good. You want to be remembered as a youth coach for the rest of a kid's life, always. And congratulations, I guess, because they're never going to forget you guys, but this ain't the way you want to go down. Kate, what do you think?
I think that, wonder if some of these kids are not going to play anymore because they really did get scarred from the incident. I mean, everyone likes to win, obviously, if you're competitive, but there's more to it. There's learning to it.
Listen, it became a cliche because there's no other way to say it. And I do believe this. And I'll say it. I want to win more than anybody else. I hate to lose. But if my kids go out and give their best performance and still come up on the short end because they played against a team that just played better, whether it's just that night or they were just a better team, or let's say, Somers 7th grade girls basketball plays against Norwood High School this week, and guess what? There are 5'6'3" boys playing against them because they couldn't put a boys team together. Whatever the point is, I will tell these girls, and I try not to use the same words, but it's not whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game. I stopped trying to change that because it's perfect. I have been prouder of my kids, and when I say my kids, I don't mean my children, I mean kids I coach. I have been prouder of my kids after losses sometimes than after wins. Because sometimes something clicks. Sometimes they get so frustrated that they say, hey, we got to just step it up. And sometimes it's without me yelling. It's them just stepping up saying, we got to play for some pride now. The things you always yell to your kids. Play for some pride now. Yeah, we're going to lose, but play for some pride. Leave the gym with your head held high. When they do those things on their own, that's great. But like I said, boy, I just wish that the story I read had the home addresses for Rod Fox, Jay Perone, and David Jans. If you know it, post it up on the Facebook page. We'll have a TP party, right? New Canaan ain't that far from where I live. I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed having both you on the show today. Just getting your perspective has been, nothing short of eye-opening for me. So I really do want to thank you. Anything you guys want to add before we head out of here today?
No,
So-
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, Coach Kate, where you guys are playing today in Ardsley in the finals?
We are playing the finals of the Ardsley tournament today, 4:30. Hoping to get some revenge from last year. We lost in the championship last year.
Did you lose to Ardsley?
We did.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Ardsley, look out. There's a pack of crazed dogs coming from Somers looking for some revenge. Again, Kate, folks, listen, another quick hour of my life gone by. Listen, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m., join me for Hey Coach Tony. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. I really appreciate it.